Welcome back to the Pretty Chill Podcast. It's me, your host, John, flying solo today. For those of you keeping score at home, this is the very first solo episode of the show. I'm going to try to do one or two of these every season just to tell some stories, let you know what I'm up to, what's going on. So this will be the first one. We'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for the support so far. The first 3 episodes are out and people are loving them. Guest obviously brought the heat, and they're just good. They're just good, and I'm feeling super grateful for that, and all of you for listening and cheering me on. That really means a lot to me and keeps me going. And I still have a lot of awesome guests coming. Big plans for following season. So yeah, I couldn't be happier with the start. So thanks again for all of your support so far. This is actually a really nice time for me to do the solo episode because I want to be feeling fresh and clear for this. And man, I can't remember a time I've felt more fresh and clear than I do right now in this week. Because last week I spent the weekend in Esalen at the Esalen Institute, and my gosh, was it? I mean, I don't even know where to start with that. If you're not familiar with the Esalen Institute, it's been around for a long time, maybe the 50s or 60s. I should actually know because we got some history lessons while there. But it's this, I don't even know, this spiritual, psychological type of retreat space that's nestled on top of this cliff up in Big Sur. It's just the coolest. It's like summer camp vibes a little bit. It's got the cabins, and then there's like the shared cafeteria. There's grounds and gardens, and the food's incredible. It's got this natural hot spring coming through, so there's healing tubs everywhere. And the other big part of it is just the people that come through there. They're there and they're on their path. They're taking classes that are offered there. They're participating in retreats that are going on, or they're just there to relax and sit in the hot tubs and eat good food and just, do their thing. So I'm not sure what to gas up more right now, the actual Esalen Institute and all the grounds, or the retreat that I actually participated in. I was fortunate enough to get asked to support for a friend of mine's retreat that him and his wife were putting on. He asked me and Becca to just support in any way, which we were just like honored, and it was just such a great way to spend it was both of our first trips to Esalen. This was put on by a friend of mine. He's a musician. You may have heard of him. His name's East Forest, and his wife Rada. They do these retreats several times a year, and man, I was just so impressed. I mean, these are good friends of mine. I know them really well. We spent a lot of time together, but I was really impressed. Expectations were, they're so talented and wonderful that I knew it was going to be an incredible experience, but I was just really blown away. There's so many things that we covered. It was an amazing group. I think we had 50 plus people there, and a lot of active listening practices, meditations. And, when you go to these types of healing, I don't want to call them healing circles, but like these retreats or whatever, the soundtrack, in my opinion, is always so important. And to have East Forest there, like with his gear and like kind of playing a live soundtrack as we're going through exercises, I don't know what's better. And music for me is so important. It guides me in all the ways, especially when I'm really trying to tap in, go inward and look for something or let something come up. East Forest's music for me has always been my number one guide. So just having him guide all of us was it's actually really hard to put into words. It was just awesome. And there's also something about being part of that community of, all these folks that were there. We were all just this cohesive unit. Everybody's there trying to better themselves, their lives, heal something, figure something out. And it's just this place of love and no real judgment. You feel 100% supported. And it's just been a minute since I've been in that type of situation. I've made the rounds with, the healing circles and plant medicine ceremonies and that sort of thing. And that's just always one of my favorite parts. It's just like sitting and having someone's peer presence and support and just the permission to just talk about whatever is coming up. We did a couple active listening exercises. And one of them was we split into groups of 4, and the exercise was one person got to speak for 5 minutes. The other 3 gave you full attention, full listening, and the listeners are not allowed to nod along. They're not allowed to they're not allowed to laugh or anything. They just listen, which was kind of a scary thing. And it was also very difficult for, like, as a listener. And it's really funny because as I've been editing my first podcast episodes, I've noticed that when the guest is speaking, I'm always like, and it's like been torture editing that out. So as we were doing it, I was like, oh, this is actually a good exercise for me for the podcast. So I'm not doing that and spending all this time editing out all this audible stuff that is not really necessary. But you also want people to know that, like, if they're delivering something that is important to them, it's really hard not to like nod or like, tell them to keep going. So I'm not saying that everybody sat there still, blank face, because it was really hard. So the prompt was, what is something about me that may surprise you? So it took me a few minutes to kind of think about what that could be. And then I was just like, man, how am I supposed to talk for 5 minutes? I'm not a big talker. Like, yes, I'm here, microphone in my face talking to you right now, but I'm usually the listener. So I had a little anxiety about listening, and then are these people going to be bored hearing my story for 5 minutes and all that stuff? But my group was incredible, and I had 3 people fully supporting, fully present, fully listening. And it was awesome. When I was done, I just felt so good and heard. And I was just thinking about, all of our monkey minds lately. I've noticed over the years that if I'm sharing something that I'm excited about with a friend, I can always tell when they start to think about something else or they lose interest or whatever. And I get it. We all have so much going on, but it always bums me out. It's just like, well, here's this awesome thing that I'm up to. I'm really excited to share, and I can't get a couple of minutes to be heard. So I always catch myself like rushing through and then stressing out of like, okay, well, I only have X amount of time to say what I want to say because the attention of this person's going to be gone. So just to be able to like have that amount of time and just sit and share the story with full presence, it was just this kind of unfamiliar feeling, honestly. Like, I don't know, when was the last time you were able to just sit and talk and tell a story with someone who is fully present? I was trying to think of it, and it doesn't happen very often. So even that simple exercise made a huge impact for me. And then East Forest did a few active listening practices with his music and kind of explained how he tells these stories within his song. And it was just so awesome and powerful. And I'm just so grateful for that opportunity to be there, because Rada and East Forest, they were like, yes, you're here to support. We were helping set things up. We were helping people with whatever they needed, but they said, whenever you can, we want you to be able to participate. So we kind of got the best of both, because we got to participate and go through all the exercises, but then we also got to be in service, which is the best thing you can do, and something I've been missing in my life for a while now. And whenever we whenever you're mapping out your year and your goals and all these things, I'm just like, well, how can I be in service? And I've been a little disappointed in that category lately. I spent quite a bit of time, several years ago, just at these types of retreats and things. And I just loved just holding space for people and just giving them full support. I think that's something I'm good at. It's something I like enjoy more than anything, is just being of service. So we got a huge dose of that. And that's honestly probably why I'm feeling so good and refreshed, because I was able to be of service at this event. Another thing that I really enjoyed over the weekend was just meeting all these new people. We're obviously all like floating on clouds because we're just in this incredible place. We are interacting with East Forest and Rada and getting all that music, medicine, and all the things, just feeling great. But as you meet these people and have these conversations, it's always, well, where are you from? What do you do? How'd you get here? These types of things. And I was able to tell my story quite a few times. And as I was telling the story, I noticed I was just in this reflective mode of, that's a really cool story. I got a cool story. This is cool. I'm proud of this story. I want to tell people this story. And the story, it goes back 15 years, this specific story, and kind of explains why and how I'm sitting in this chair right now with a camera in front of me in my own studio here in California. And it's just cool. And I'm really enjoying reflecting on the turning points and the decisions and the goods and the bads and the perseverance of this path so far. So one of the conversations that I had that really just kind of ignited and got me just really going on my story was after this conversation that I had with this one woman at the retreat. She was talking about how she just loves music and her dream is to be a musician up on stage. That's all she thinks about. She has jealousy towards anybody that is already doing that. And I totally feel that I'm the exact same way. And she said that she can play the guitar. She's got a nice foundation. She can play some songs. She can do it. But she just has so much resistance picking up the guitar and practicing and learning new songs. And she just knows she's never going to make it up on stage because of this, and kept bringing up just resistance after resistance after resistance. So I asked her if she's ever read the book, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield, which she had not. If you have not read this book, this is my number one most gifted book. I've gifted it easily over 25, 30 times. The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. This is the book that really changed my life and got me going. And I've been reading it for 15 years. I always have it near. It's a great book to read cover to cover. It's a small book, but it's also one that you can just flip to any page. And it may just be the medicine you need that day. It's just kind of a kick in the ass a lot of the times. So about the time that I got this book, this is about the time that I want my story to begin for everybody listening. This was around 2010 or so. This was easily the most difficult time of my life. I had just lost my grandma and my mom within a few months of each other. I had a short marriage stint that ended, so I was dealing with that. Bank account low, no real direction. Work was kind of hit or miss. I just really didn't know what to do. So I kind of just retreated a bit and was pretty isolated. But for whatever reason, I had just this tiny little ember, this tiny little flame inside me that was just like, fuck it. What do we have to lose? Let's just go for it. And this is referring to my passion for storytelling and writing. I've always been a movie guy. I've watched every movie. I love movies. I love the writing. I love the acting. I love the cinematography. Always have. And that was always my dream, was like, if you could do anything, what would it be? And mine was always, I want to write scripts for Hollywood films. But that wasn't really a reality. Nobody really did that where I'm from. So I clearly took no action at that time because I didn't even know there was action to take. I was just, this is another planet where that would happen. But at this time I was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to start writing. So I have this amazing group of friends, these wild boys that I grew up with. And I think if the YouTube era started a little bit sooner, I'd probably be this famous YouTube guy because I was always just like filming my friends, screwing around. And we had just like such this cast of characters. And I'd always just write these little stories of what we were up to. And I just had a lot of fun doing that. But this was just kind of off to the side. I never thought that, well, I'm going to write this and then be in Hollywood. That was still not a dream. That was still like not even possible. It was not a reality. I was just like, I need a job so I can pay for food and that type of thing. Like that's 100% where my focus was. So around this time, my cousin and really close friend of mine, Luke Larson, he had just published a novel based on his 2 tours in Iraq as a Marine infantry officer. Luke's just like the most badass, smartest, hardest working guy ever, and just bound to be successful. And he was, and he is. He's just incredible. But he just crushed this novel. It was his first book. He was just like, I'm just going to write this, and it did really well. So after the book kind of started gaining some traction, he knew I was interested in writing scripts and also just kind of in this weird place. And he presented me with this. He said, hey man, like, why don't you adapt the book into a screenplay? And I had never done that. I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't a war genre guy. So I was just like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but it actually worked out really well because now I can focus more on like the format and the story versus like trying to like think about military type stuff, which I have nothing about. All that's already in there. I just have to extract what I can to put that into a screenplay. And I mean, obviously very challenging. And whenever you go see a movie that's based on a book, you always walk out being like, oh, the book was way better. Well, yeah, that's because the book is like there's 100x more in a book. And the screenplay is just this tiny extraction of that book. So anyway, yeah, I said, I'll do it. I don't got much else going on. This is what I want to do. Let me kind of just focus and take this serious, and let's just see what happens. So I attended a few writing seminars and really just studied the art of storytelling and worked on this project for quite a long time. And it was finished, and Luke, who's very, very hard, gave it his stamp of approval. So I was like feeling good. And I mean, I wasn't thinking, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be making Hollywood films. It was more like just this sense of accomplishment that I really needed at that time. And also, like, I learned so much from doing that. One thing I forgot to mention was right when I was starting the project, Luke gave me this book, The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. He's like, read this book. This is like your requirement. You have to read this to work on the project. I was like, done. So I read this book, was just totally blown away. I just can't say enough good things about this book. And then Luke's like, yeah, I actually know Steven Pressfield. Steven, they're connected with the Marines or something. I forget what the connection was, but Steve really liked Luke's book, and they became friends, and they would see each other from time to time. And Steve's story is pretty cool. Like, he was one of those dudes. I don't think he made it as an author until I think he was in his 40s or 50s. Just that story of he lived in his car for like 10 years. If I remember right, I think he lived in his car for years and years with a typewriter, and he was just, I want to write books and screenplays. And he was just, this is what I'm doing. And then he wrote a few books that you may know. He wrote The Legend of Baker Vance. He wrote Gates of Fire, and then several others, a few like The War of Art, where they're just kind of like smaller kicks in the ass. Like Do the Work is one of them. So we have this finished script, and Luke's pretty well connected at this point. He's through his book and business and the Marines and all these things. So we're like, well, maybe we have a chance for somebody passed along the script to somebody in Hollywood or whatever. We don't know. Let's just see what happens. So a few months passed maybe since the script was done. I'm still working on other things, but still like not really going anywhere. Bank account still dwindling. Phone's not ringing, not much going on. Although I did get a nice jolt of accomplishment from doing that, it was still like, well, now what, And then one evening I get an email and it's from Steve Pressfield. And I'm like, all right, I've never talked to Steve. I've never had any communication. I just knew that him and Luke have a friendship, but that's it. So I have this email from Steve and it says, "Hey, John, read your script. Great job. Can you meet me for dinner next Wednesday in Malibu? Here's the address, 7 p.m. I just had to do a really long pause there to think about what that felt like when I received that. And what came up was I remember being just, even though I successfully, in my opinion, completed that script, my confidence was still very low. I've been rather isolated. I'm not a super social guy anyway, but that was like social level really low. And I mean, I'm not even sure I had money for a plane ticket at that time. But I just said, fuck it. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll figure it out. And I'm way up out in the middle of nowhere, Washington State. I rustled up some cash somehow, called a buddy in California. Hey, can I stay at your place for a couple nights? And I just made it. I did it. And I arrived at the restaurant. I'm sitting there. I'm very nervous, like probably sweating. And in walks Steven Pressfield. And he's holding my script under his arm. I can see the little red marks and little tags sticking out of the script. And he comes in and sits down, and he's just a wonderful man, wonderful guy. And we just have a nice conversation. We don't really dive into the details of the script. He just said, "John, this script is for a first-time writer. Hollywood is not ready for this script. It's too soon after this Iraq war situation. It's a huge budget. You're a new writer, so I don't think anything will happen with it today. But the good news is it won't expire. You can always try to push it out later." And I would just kind of sit on it and wait. And I was like, okay, well, that's okay. That could have been worse. He said, another thing that I noticed was you're really great at storytelling. And he said that people spend their whole life trying to get that skill of telling a story. And I'm sure we all have friends. I have friends that they're trying to tell a story and it goes on for an hour and they're including all this stuff that doesn't really matter. And I'm like, ugh. So hearing that from him, that I can tell a good story, that's another nice win for me, that I'm like, oh, yes, I love that. That's great. And going in, I wasn't even sure if I was going to ask him for advice, because again, this is a time where I'm just like really low and down on myself. And I almost don't even want to take up his time and attention, because what does he have to gain to have this dinner with me, right? But I asked, I was like, okay, well, like, what do you suggest I do? I'm kind of just really looking for a direction right now. I thought about going to film school, but what I did for this script and these other scripts that I'm writing right now, it's like really lighting me up. And he said, well, you have a couple options. You can go to film school, and that's fine. Or, and this is what he suggested, he's like, I would find some projects that are easily accessible to you, just some maybe silly stories of friends or family or even yourself that you can write and produce and shoot and edit yourself. That way you do every single aspect. You learn how to do every single thing. You'll get all these skills. You'll have a finished product. It'll be way cheaper than film school. And then you can kind of evaluate, well, do I like to edit more than anything? Do I like to write? What do I actually like to do out of the whole process. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. I left the dinner. As I'm walking out, I called a buddy of mine who we had been kind of jokingly talking about doing a documentary on his life. And I called him. I'm like, hey man, we're going to do this. And he's like, all right, I'm in. Let me know what you need. And right there, I just committed. I was like, I'm going to do this. I've never felt more clear. And it was just an easy little nudge from Steve. He wasn't shoving information down my throat or bossing me around. He was just like, here's what I suggest. And it just made sense enough for me. And it all just clicked and made sense. And I was like, I'm in, I'm doing it. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. So after I talked to my friend and he was in, I just went right to work on the outline. I wasn't skilled with the camera. I have carried around a camera, but it was always just on auto or whatever. I didn't know what aperture or anything like that was. So I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn what camera to even buy. I had to raise money because I had no money. Logistically, it was a challenging project, but I didn't care. I was going to figure it out. And I just spent the next couple of months just mapping that out. How is it going to work? And I learned so much in just outlining things, because if I was going here, I would need this much money. If I was shooting this type of interview, I would need this camera. If I was doing this, I would need this light or this lens. And these are all things that I had no idea about, but I still to this day, I always have two monitors. One is YouTube is up 24/7 for me. I've learned everything on YouTube, even back then when the videos were crap and grainy and silly. That's how I learned cameras. That's how I learned microphones. That's how I learned every single thing is on YouTube. And I still do. I still watch YouTube videos on everything, every little thing. I still rewatch old camera videos that I watched 10 years ago, just in case there was something basic that I missed that could make my life a lot easier. Always watching, always watching, always watching. So fast forward a few months and I have the story outline all put together. I feel like I have the budget dialed in and the gear list, and I just have this like really solid plan. I'm feeling good. I email Steve and I let him know the plan and all these things. And I said, so tomorrow I'm going to do XYZ. And he wrote back pretty quickly and he said, it was very short. And he said, why not start today? Good luck. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. You know, he could have said so many things. He could have evaluated everything that I listed out or whatever. But he just honed in on that. Like, why am I saying tomorrow when I can start right now? Why not start today? And that's a line that I use all the time. My friends, we kind of joke about it, you know, because in my situation, it was a logistical thing in my mind. Well, like, I can't do this until tomorrow, but there's other things that I can start today. And that's always like, if I feel myself procrastinating, or, well, I can do this later in the week, when I know Steve would say, why not start this today? That's been a huge help for me. So I started and finished this project. It was incredible. You know, Steve's advice was to make just a short 10, 15-minute video. I ended up making an hour-long documentary that screened all over the country and a little bit in Europe. It was based on my good friend Casey Esalen and his wife Bracy Barker, who are former professional basketball players at that time. They had just met in Germany and were playing in Luxembourg. Bracy on the women's team and Casey on the men's team, of course. And it's just their story, and the little tagline was the true story of love and basketball. And looking back, you know, I watch the film every once in a while, and I'm like, oh man, I really didn't know what I was doing, but at least I was just doing the best that I could. So a lot of the film, I'm like, as I watch, it's hard not to be like, oh, why did I do that this way? But really just knowing how little I knew at that time, and how I was pretty much the one-man band on that show with no real advisor or producer. Great job. It's awesome. It's awesome, awesome, awesome. And it's funny to think about, would this project have happened if I didn't have that conversation with Steve? Would I be sitting here today if I didn't have that conversation with Steve? I want to say, yeah, probably. I probably would have found my way, but the story's a lot better, including Steve, and just that subtle little nudge coming from somebody I admired so much at that time. And I'm just like forever grateful for him on that. So after extending the play, I was constantly writing and wanted to do another documentary. I also really started picking up photography because one of the cameras I use for the film is a great photo camera. So I began to learn that camera for the photo side of it and started to do some photos for free for some friends. And then I got the advice from Gary Vee way back in the day, once like Instagram and these other social platforms were starting to really take off. Gary Vee was like, you can just reach out to anybody you want to work with. You can literally just send them a DM and tell them what you can do for them. So I did that. I took that advice, and I was in Seattle at the time, and I would just kind of cruise Instagram and find people that inspired me or I thought were doing cool stuff, and or that were kind of on my level of just like, they're just on the come up. So I would just reach out and be like, hey, I would love to get you some fresh photos for your page. Here's what we can do. Here's what I'm thinking. And that's really where things started to take off. And I quickly became very busy with the photos. That graduated into like doing a lot of weddings, which I didn't really love to do, but my whole goal was to get out of my job that I had at the time and be able to do this sort of thing full time. So that was always the goal. I always had that end in sight. So I always say, like, I quit my job. It just took me 3 years to actually be able to leave. And that time came a few years later when a friend of mine, Jason Prawl, had this idea for this other documentary film series, studying the blue zones. These are the areas around the world with the highest concentration of centenarians, people over 100 years old. He just was really into longevity and healthy aging, and that was a really hot topic at that time. And so we worked together to map that out. And just looking at that project, I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to do this and have a full-time job. The previous projects, I was able to make it work because I had a really flexible schedule at that time. But this one, there's no job that could be this flexible. So I made the decision to quit my job. I gave them 3 months notice and just took the leap. I didn't have a ton of financial security at that time, but I just trusted that things were going to work out. And I just wanted to be doing what I wanted to be doing. So Jason and we did it. This was a lot of hard work again, but it really paid off. It was super successful, great project, met so many amazing people, traveled the world, like just the dream situation. And the Human Longevity Project, it's still out there if you're interested in checking that out. Warning, it's a ton of information. It's like 13 hours long. It's super sciencey, gets super techy. So just be warned on that, but it's awesome. We've always flirted with like, let's make a sexier version. Let's make like a 90-minute where it's like less of like the technical stuff and more of like the cool stuff, but we just haven't got it done yet, but hopefully someday we will. Not too long after that release, Jason and I started drawing up an idea for another project, studying just these other ancient healing traditions around the world. Another project that we were both really excited about, Jason mostly writing that and me producing and filming. And we just went after it. This time we had an extra camera guy, which is a huge help. And we just started and didn't have a huge budget. I think we actually were just funding it ourselves. Just like Human Longevity Project, we did not have a huge budget. We had enough just to get started, and we're like, this is good enough. Let's just go. So we started this next project. We filmed in India, Nepal, Peru, a couple places in the States, and it was just going so awesome. A lot of hard work again, but like, this is the best hard work to do, something that you love doing. You're traveling to these amazing places, working with like the most incredible healers ever. So in 2020, we're about halfway through production, and then COVID hit, and we just haven't been able to recover the project. It was a lot of work to to get in touch with some of these healers we were working with and make travel plans and all these things. We were actually set to go to New Zealand to work with the Maoris in March of 2020, which is literally when COVID hit. And we just haven't been able to reschedule things. So we have just a year worth of incredible footage from this project that is just kind of sitting, collecting dust at the moment. We still believe that there's something we can make of what we got, but we'll see. We'll see. So we're kind of just chilling out during the COVID time, and Jason's life had changed. He just met his future wife and had a kid and all these things. So he kind of was going to be, it was going to be very challenging for us to be like film buddies, traveling around, work on these projects. So at that time, I opened my own production company called Jet Creative, and I began helping people with their everything: podcasting, YouTube, social media, coursework, still doing some photos here and there, but just really wanted to just show up and be a reliable, hardworking, talented person for these brands and these people. I started with just one client, and then there was a second, and that was enough to keep me afloat for a little bit as I really honed in my offerings and what I wanted to do. And at that time, I also want to kind of like upgrade my gear, which is a huge trap that I've fallen for before. There's just so much I've bought that I've never used. And it's such a trap for anybody that's trying to get going into filmmaking. Is like, I want the newest camera or lens or whatever. No, you're good with whatever camera you have. Yeah, there's some little things to invest that are really going to help. But I think just all the options of gear is just a huge roadblock for a lot of people to get going. But I knew that I really wanted to upgrade my camera, and that was a legit thing. The camera that I wanted was very expensive, and I'm kind of just like looking at the numbers and being like, can I just get by with what I'm using? Do I really need this? But I wanted this camera because I felt like if I was to offer elite level services, like this is the camera that's going to do that. But it still came down to numbers for me at that time. And I was just like, no, it's just too much. And then comes one of my all-time favorite manifestation stories. So one day I was just sitting there thinking of the camera like I always do. And I was like, I'm just going to buy this camera, and then that's going to just open the floodgates, and people are going to want to work with me. Not because like I have the latest camera and I make this big announcement. They really don't give a shit. But I just know energetically I'm going to get this camera and things are going to happen for me. So I did it. I bought the camera. It arrived. I took it out of the box. May have shed a tear. I was just like so happy, but also nervous because now I have this camera and it took a lot of money to get it. So I'm just like kind of in this weird in between. But I promise you this is a true story. So the next morning after receiving the camera, I wake up, I check my phone. I know I'm not supposed to, but I did. And there's a message from a dude that worked with us on the Human Longevity Project. Great guy. And he's like, hey man, I just had a guy on my podcast, and he said he's looking for help for his documentary. He needs some help filming it. Would you be interested? His name's East Forest. And it was just hard not to like laugh at this time. I didn't know East Forest at this time. I had listened to his music for many years. It absolutely changed my life in all the ways that I'm pretty sure I talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the episode, but just one of the more important humans in my life. And he had no idea. He had just been in my pocket and ears for many years, through hard times, through good times. And it was just funny. It was just like the funniest freaking thing ever. So that doesn't mean that I got the job or it was immediate. That didn't mean it was my choice, right? So I messaged back, yeah, of course, please introduce us. So I met with East Forest. We did a couple Zooms and things like this. And if you know anything about him, he's a very, very particular guy, very particular. We had some really good conversation. I gave some ideas on how we can produce this film. And he invited me to meet him at his show. This was in Las Vegas. He had a show there. So I drove over and met him and had an opportunity to film. And I felt like it was really good chemistry from the start. And he was like, yeah, man, I want to make this movie with you. So I was all on board, worked on this project with East Forest for a couple of years, and it just was released at the end of 2024. It's called Music for Mushrooms. It's a movie I'm just so proud of. It is so awesome. It's just good. It's really good and professional, and really proud of my work and just accomplishing the movie. It was very complex and detailed, and East Forest really wanted it a certain way, so we had to get very specific things, and very challenging. I was exhausted all the time, but there's just nothing else I would have rather been doing. This is my passion. This is what I've been working hard for so long, and just feeling my skills elevate and my authority elevate and my just passions become clear. It all happened on this project, and it's out now. You can stream it. I got some word that maybe it's going to be on some of the streaming channels soon. It's still kind of doing some theater tours, which has been like incredibly rewarding. There's nothing better for me in my life than watching one of my movies on a big screen and in an audience. So I was able to go to a few of the events with East Forest and present the film and do Q&As. And that's just been like such a highlight for me over the last couple of years. But I think the film it's just really needed right now. So East Forest, if you don't know his story, he experimented with psilocybin, magic mushrooms back in the day, and they really were transforming his life. So he was like, but he was also noticing what impacted his experience with them, music and sound. So he started making music specifically to pair with a mushroom journey. And there's other artists that do this now, but in my opinion, he's just like the absolute best at this. He just makes you feel so safe and held, and you can just like push the limits a bit, but know that you're always going to come back to safety. And yeah, he's just an incredible artist. So the film is about that relationship between music and sound, and what's really going on in the body, like what's happening, what's happening in the brain. So we have all kinds of people in the film, from neuroscientists to like shamanic leaders to artists, and we tell East Forest's story. So there's something in there for everybody, and I'd really feel honored if you checked it out and let me know what you think. That's Music for Mushrooms. You can see it on the website, I believe, right now. And now that film is over, I've been just focusing on my client work. I got the studio space, and it's been really busy with all these things, the podcast, the socials, the YouTube. And another thing is I just really enjoy the creative coaching. I love, one of my favorite stages is when someone is ready to use their voice, kind of like I'm doing with this podcast. Is how do we get you in position to feel comfortable and confident and get your message out there? So I've been working with a lot of people just getting going. And that's something that I'm really, really enjoying. It's really filling me up. I have a couple other documentary ideas that, now that Music for Mushrooms, I'm kind of done there. I'm just like on standby if anything's needed. But now that that's over, I'm starting to kind of explore some new documentary ideas I've been thinking about. So we'll see on that. But because I have a little bit of space, that's how this podcast was able to emerge. I've always wanted to share all these amazing people I've met on this Forrest Gump type of a journey I've been on, and tell some stories and just share some wisdoms that maybe otherwise wouldn't be heard, because a lot of these folks that I think are just incredible people, they're not on the big podcasts that we're all listening to. So I think this is an opportunity to give just regular people that are awesome, doing incredible things, an opportunity to share their stories. So I'm like super stoked on this podcast, and I called it Pretty Chill because it's, a lot of the podcasts that we listen to, it's just information overload. It's transactional. It's just too much. And I know that I'm overflowed with information. I want just like some chill, gentle, subtle inspiration and stories, and just to learn about regular people who are doing really cool stuff. So that's kind of the premise of the show. And it's just a lot of fun right now. It's really filling me up. It is a lot of work, which is kind of funny because this is a lot of the work that I do for other people, but I'm doing all the production myself. And it's just a lot of work with no real financial return, but the return that I get from just sharing stories and presenting other people, and then just like hearing that people are enjoying it, like that's at the moment is all I need. So I'm just going to keep going with it and see how it goes. But yeah, that's how I ended up in this chair. I hope that was a fun story. And I actually had a quick follow-up to Steven Pressfield. I actually met him and my cousin Luke for lunch earlier this year up in Malibu. I hadn't seen him since that dinner. We email from time to time. I just kind of check in with him. And we met for lunch, and I've never told him how impactful that was in my life. He has no idea what I was going through at that time. Just none of that. And when I was going up, I was like, do I say anything? Does he care? I was just in that headspace, and we were at lunch, and Luke got up and I think went to the bathroom or something. So it was just me and Steve. And I was just like, Steve, I got to let you know that when we met 15 years ago, I was in a really, really dark place, and the advice that you gave me completely changed my life. I would not be sitting here right now if it wasn't for you taking the time to just tell me I can do it and nudge me along. And he was just smiling. He was just smiling, and I can tell he was just happy. He was just happy for me. It wasn't like see, I told you so, or he wasn't trying to find another lesson or tell me anything else. He was just smiling and genuinely happy for me. It was all for me. It was so just special and sweet. Yeah, he just kept smiling and nodding, and he just said, "You're welcome." And he was happy that he could help. He said if I ever need anything, he's always there for me, which is really cool. Actually, he's actually a dream client for me. I don't even do I call him a client? So I've kind of soft pitched him over the years of like trying to do some stuff, but he's like 80, he's in his 80s now, and he's just kind of over it. If you follow him, you'll see him on his social media. He's kind of going through the motions, and but you can tell he doesn't really want to work too hard anymore. But yeah, we'll forever be grateful for Steven and this incredible story that I can tell of his impact on me, as subtle as it may have seemed. It was what I really needed, and the reason why I think I'm sitting here today. So thank you so much for listening to that story. I hope you got something out of it. Again, I can't stress enough, War of Art. If you ever feel any sort of resistance or strain on something that you want to do in your life, please check out that book. And also, if you get a chance, please like and subscribe to the channel, the YouTube, the Spotify, Apple, whatever you're watching or listening to the podcast on. That really, really helps me grow the pod. So I'd really appreciate that. And also open to any feedback if there's anything that you're enjoying from the show, or if I'm annoying or you want more or less of that. Reach out anytime. We're all friends here, and I just want to make the best show I can for everybody. So thanks again for listening, and we will see you in the next episode. See ya.